Let's take a look at a sample APA paper now. This one is also located at Purdue's Online Writing Lab. If you would like to access this paper later, you can find it at the link on Blackboard. The colored boxes in the margins explain much of what is expected in an APA-style paper. Green boxes here are for formatting, and blue are for citations. Notice that student papers do not have a running head, and the page numbers begin on the title page if you have one. This paper does begin with the title page. Notice here, the title is in bold and about 3 or 4 lines below the top of the page. Your name and your department and university come next. After, APA requires your professor and then the date. Each piece of information gets its own line. 12-point Times New Roman is a preferred font. APA is always double-spaced with 1-inch margins. We'll skip the abstract and the keywords because you won't often be asked to complete this part. If it is a requirement for your essay, you can read the guidelines later on your own. So here we find some great examples of in-text citations. Remember, you always need to cite your information both in text and on the reference page. Your in-text citations lead your reader to the full entry on the reference page. Even if you put information in your own words called paraphrasing, you need to include an in-text citation. If you do not include an in-text citation, you are plagiarizing. In APA style, the in-text citation has 2 or 3 required elements, depending on if you're using a direct quote or not. For both a quotation and paraphrase material, you need the author's last name and the year of publication. For direct quotes, you also need the page number. Paraphrase material does not need the page number. Also, here's a trickier part. If a resource has 1 or 2 authors, you always list the names in the text, the in-text citation. If a resource has 3 or more authors, you list the first author and then use et al. For the rest. Et al. Means and others in Latin. We have 2 excellent examples of in-text citations right here. In this first, the student used the author's name in the body of his paper, according to Thal. So right after he wrote the author's name, he put the year of publication in parentheses. He then put the page number at the end of the quoted material because it's a direct quote. For one page, you use a P and a period in the parentheses, like this example. If you have multiple pages, you will use PP for pages plural. The very next sentence is a perfect example of paraphrase material. So and this one doesn't have an author in the text of the essay. So this student put the author at the end of the paraphrase material with the year of publication. Notice you don't need a page number here because it's paraphrased. Also note that the punctuation is placed on the outside of the parentheses. So if we keep scrolling, we can find several other examples. There are also examples of tables, figures, and headings, all with their own set of rules. As you are writing your own paper, it might help to return to the examples here to make sure you are citing properly. If we scroll to page 12, we have a great example of a block quotation, right here. If you have a quotation longer than 40 words, you use a block quotation. You indent the entire quote a ½ inch and remove the quotation marks. Cite it just as you would a regular quote. Here, the author and the year are written into the text of the essay, so your student needs only to put the page number at the end. Notice also on a block quotation, you put the punctuation before the parentheses. Okay, let's take a look at the reference page. In MLA, this page is called the Works Cited page, but in APA, we title this References. Notice all of the references are alphabetized, they're double-spaced with no large spaces in between, and they have the hanging indentation where everything but the first line is indented of each entry. The reference page has a full entry for each of your sources. Your in-text citations lead your reader to this page. Like MLA, there are very specific rules for how you present your reference page. They always begin with the author's last name, comma, first initials. If your source doesn't have an author, you begin with the title of the source. In the body of the paper, you should also use the title with quotations or italics as appropriate. But make sure you thoroughly vet any materials you use without an author. Generally speaking, academic materials list all of their authors. If you don't know who created a resource, that might be a sign that it isn't academic enough for your purposes. There are rules for each type of source that you use, and you can find most of these on Purdue's OWL Online Writing Lab website or in the style guide behind the reference desk. We also have a helpful handout that summarizes the most commonly used sources in the library. And as always, you can find us at the reference desk in the library or via the library chat on the portal.